Hello. Thanks again for joining me on a different day of the week. I believe we are going to stay on Wednesdays for a bit. So get used to this day and time, put it on your calendar. But as always, check the channel because we'll always post in advance. All right, talking today about how to make rapid improvement, especially for beginners, but beginners, it's quite an umbrella term. So maybe you've been singing for years, but you're just now getting serious about improving your voice. And today is all about you. So let me go over my plan with you. And I also want to draw your attention to the video description. I have some resources. There's an article that I wrote on making rapid improvement that will kind of recap some of the concepts that we go over today. There's an article there on ear training, and there are a bunch of app recommendations specifically for ear training. And then there's also an article that goes step by step through how to find your vocal range. So our agenda for today, we'll talk first about daily practice, what that should look like, and why we want to practice every day. We'll talk about ear training. We'll talk about range and registration. We'll talk about basically what to do when in doubt. If you feel that you're just getting overwhelmed with all of the new information you're learning, kind of what to make your focus, how to simplify. Understanding what specific exercises are good for and how to modify them if a specific exercise is not working for you. What we want to avoid is just this mindless ba 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 ba. We want to know why am I using this exercise? What's the B good for? What's the good for? And if I'm not getting the desired result, how can I modify that syllable to make it work for me? We'll talk a little bit about song work, and my big encouragement for beginners is to choose easy songs to start with. And when you're looking for a challenge, look, one step above your current skill level, not jumping all the way to, Love on Top or Never Enough from Greatest Showman. The importance of goals and deadlines, and then as always, we'll end with some Q&A. So let me get situated, dragging my little lesson plan over and video over here so I can see you and your questions as they come in. And hey, happy birthday, Manuel! Awesome. Manuel is a regular here on our live lessons. So hey, what a nice celebration to have you with us. So I want to talk about daily practice. First, just think with me. If you're learning a new skill, are you going to make improvement if you practice that skill once a week, or if you're practicing that skill every day? I know with singing, sometimes people think, oh, you have to be born a singer or you have to be talented. But singing is a skill. And sure, some of us are born with more of a predisposition to being musical or to having a beautiful tone. But it is a skill, and it's a physical activity as well. So I like to liken singing often, maybe this is a bad comparison to make, but I like to liken it to a golf swing because sure, strength might be involved a little bit, but it's a lot more about coordination, timing, mindset, than some other, athletic endeavors. So if you're out there practicing your golf swing every day, you're going to make improvement faster. Same thing with singing. So within that daily practice, first, I want you to pick a regular time each day if you have a schedule that allows for that. If your schedule is different every day, like mine is, then it might be a little bit more tricky to find one time that you can commit to. But the reason for this is we want to get rid of that hurdle where you have to make the decision to practice. That's a huge hurdle. And if you're in the same boat as me when it comes to practicing a new skill or maybe exercising, if you have to make the decision, yes, today I'm going to exercise, or yes, today I'm going to work on my singing, oh boy, there are a lot of excuses that can come in. So if instead you say, every day at 6 p.m. or every day at 10 a.m., whatever it looks like for your schedule, I'm going to spend 20 minutes working on my singing. Then you've removed that hurdle from the equation, and that's huge. So once you take away the decision hurdle, then you're on the fast track to creating a habit. And once you create that habit, it's so much easier to maintain. Once something's a habit, it's no longer difficult to do. It's not difficult to brush your teeth every day because you've been doing it every single day. But if you've ever babysat or if you've ever parented, that developing that habit is difficult at first. Second tip for your daily practice is to put your phone away, or at the very least to go into, silent mode where you're not going to be checking texts, you're not looking at social media. I understand you might be using your phone to get pitches. Your warm up might be on your phone. But as much as possible, if you can, leave the phone and just use, let's say, your laptop or iPad or something. And again, you're going into focus mode. So you're not multitasking. You're just focused on singing. That's great. Third tip is to have a specific plan. So daily practice, I know that I throw that out and you're like, okay, but what do I do? So the thing that you should do every single day is to vocalize with warm-ups. And we could call it a warm-up. We could call it a vocal exercise. If we really want to get into the nitty-gritty about this, a warm-up is preparing your voice to sing, and an exercise is working on specific skills. So if you're looking at a typical, let's say, 10 or 15-minute warm-up, maybe something we've posted here on the channel, maybe something on the 30-Day Singer site, the first few exercises are typically going to be a true warm-up, something semi-occluded like a lip trill, maybe something, closed or singing through a straw. That's getting your voice prepared to sing. And then in the middle and end of that warm up or vocal exercise routine, then we're working on specific skills. We're working on lining up our vowels or sustaining pitches or, building power, things like that. So the thing that you want to do every day is at least warm up, meaning lip trills, easy stuff, something maybe a little bit wider range so that it's forcing you to shift through your different registers, and something that is developing that mixed registration. We have a nice mix warm-up video here on the site. And then in addition to that, choose one skill you want to work on. So maybe that skill, like I said, maybe the skill is belting, maybe it's agility, sustains, lining up your vowels, staccato, legato. You can choose any number of skills to work on, but have a focus for that practice session. I would say a lot of times my practice sessions are, I try to do a lot at once. I try to hit everything. But especially for beginning singers and even advanced singers who are really diving deep, have your warm up, maybe that's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and then focusing on specific skills. After that, you could work on ear training. You could do some analysis. So listen to music and write down what you hear. Make notes on your lyrics sheet about style and phrasing, things like that. Your song work as well, which we'll touch on later. But as long as you are vocalizing every day, I'm happy. So let me know any questions on that. But that's a lot that I front loaded about about daily practice. Awesome. So I'm just checking in the comments, and Joshua is learning to play guitar, also wants to know how to sing. Awesome. That'll be really, really great because you can accompany yourself and, not, you don't need to rely on anybody. Bop is asking, can you take a day off? I normally take off Sundays. Absolutely. So if this whole daily practice thing, if you're committed, yes, absolutely. I would say 6 days a week is awesome. 1 day off. Perfect. Other singers might feel like, well, every other day is more realistic for me in my schedule. That's something I can commit to. Um, my thought is even if it's 5 minutes a day, I'd rather have you getting into the practice session daily, just because then it's a daily habit. But anyways, and Joshua is asking, how many hours do I have to practice? The voice fatigues, the voice wears out in ways that other instruments won't. So sure, your fingers might start hurting as you're practicing guitar, um, but you're typically not going to be risking injury if you're, practicing guitar for a long time. And those fingertips also tell you like, okay, I'm done. The voice, like I said, much more sensitive. So for most singers, a 20-25 minute practice session is great. So beginners, especially 20-25 minutes. For more advanced singers, you could probably take that up to an hour. I know professional singers and singers in college are practicing much more than that. But for most singers, myself included, an hour is great. That doesn't have to be a continuous hour either. It can be 25 minutes, 5 minute break, another 20 minutes, little break. So be mindful that your instrument is one that can wear out, and we don't want to do that. We want to sing on a healthy voice that feels good. Okay, so ear training. To make rapid improvement, we want to train those ears. A lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but a good portion of singers that I meet for the first time, they don't know that their intonation is an issue. So they're going through an exercise. Let's say the exercise is mum, 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 mum. And instead of matching those pitches, they're going mum, 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 mum. Not even close. This is a different thing than mum, 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 and singing in a different octave. Mum, 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 mum. That's cool. That won't clash. But developing that awareness to know when you're singing in tune and when you're not, that's huge. So I would say for beginning singers, don't just assume that you have an awesome ear. Do a little test. So work with a chromatic tuner and a virtual keyboard on matching pitch. Also, there are plenty of apps for this purpose. So I normally will point people to tuner.ninja for a chromatic tuner, and a virtual piano like, let's see, virtualpiano.net, for example. And if you don't want to download an app yet, you can literally just practice matching pitch by playing a key on the piano, seeing what key you just pressed. So say it's, C4. Here, I'll do a little demonstration. So I've got on my phone, I have the Perfect Piano app. And so I can get a pitch. It shows me at least where the C's are. So see, that says C4. So if I press it, so I'm getting my reference pitch and then singing ooh. But hey, what if you're going ooh and you don't know that you're not actually matching pitch? This is where the chromatic tuner comes in. So it could be as simple as that, getting a virtual keyboard to play some pitches and then practice matching that pitch, seeing how you do with a chromatic tuner like tuner.ninja. But go to the video description because there's a lot of other apps for you to check out. And it's not an exhaustive list, but it can at least get you started. So matching pitch, that's baseline what we need to be doing to learn to sing. Second, what you can do is get comfortable with different vocal exercise patterns. So if you've seen any warm-up here on YouTube or over on our site, you'll see that each warm-up has numbers next to it. So an example would be a warm-up that has mum and then 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. And a lot of beginning singers are like, I don't understand what the numbers are. I'm just going to ignore that part. But those numbers are there to help you. Those numbers are what we call scale degrees. So we sing that mum. Let's start, for example, on C4. Mum, 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 mum. I'm singing 1, 3, and 5 in the key of C. You probably already know how to sing a major scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. If you've heard the Do, re, mi song from Sound of Music, that's what they're doing. They're singing a major scale on these syllables called solfege or solfeggio. Anyways, those scale degrees, at the very least, they'll give you a map of what that exercise would look like if we put it on paper and what it should sound like. Meaning, 1, 3, we're skipping over 2. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 1, 3, and 5. Sometimes you might have a pattern that goes 1, 3, 5, 8. So you can expect 5 to 8 is going to be a jump. You're jumping over scale degrees 6 and 7. If I've totally lost you, please check out the other live lessons after we hang up today. Hang up. Oh, I'm dating myself. After we end this live lesson, check out the other live lessons on intonation and music theory because we really dive into a major scale, scale degrees, all that business. But if you can internalize and understand the scale patterns or the warm-up patterns, that'll also help you with your intonation. For example, if you have 1, 3, 5, 3, 1, and then I gave you a pattern that was 1, 5, 1. Now you know that's a big jump. It's not going to be 1, 5, 1. No. 1, skip over 2, 3, 4, and go to 5. All right, so 1 is going to be the lowest pitch in that pattern. 8 is going to be the highest, and every now and then we go to 9. But that can really help you out if you're struggling to conceptualize what those warm-up patterns mean. Okay, next topic here on getting better quickly, range and registration. Determining your vocal range will help simplify your life in terms of choosing warm-ups that you can be assured you can sing along with, and choosing songs that are going to be a good fit for you. So if you know me, you know I'm not a fan of putting singers in a box and saying, you're a soprano, so you can't sing low, or you're a tenor, so you can't sing low, and vice versa with the other voice parts. I'm not into that. And I think that classifying yourself early can be limiting for you. Because imagine this scenario. Imagine you are an untrained singer and you've never used head voice before. You've never sung high. So you've only ever been speaking and kind of singing in a low, comfortable range. You could work on your voice and discover, hey, those high notes are actually quite comfortable for me now that I know how to sing them. And the low stuff, I was comfortable there before, but not so much anymore. My voice tires out a lot when I sing low for too long. So what I'm trying to get at is your voice type, it might take a little bit to really settle. And you can also change voice types as you age. Is a high tenor going to become a true low bass? Probably not. But have I changed voice type and been reclassified or even misclassified throughout my life? And I'm in my 20s still? Yeah. So I've had people confidently tell me I'm a soprano, and other people confidently tell me I'm an alto. So at the end of the day, you sing what you're comfortable singing. And but for beginners, if you have a higher voice, then you're going to waste a bit of time, if you're choosing warm-ups that are for a bass baritone or for an alto. And so anyways, the big takeaway from that is find your vocal range just as a basic guideline. Again, link in the video description for a step-by-step on how to determine your vocal range. Second, along with that, is to understand your general registration points. We've talked about this in other videos, but in general, most lower voices, meaning tenors, baritones, and basses, are going to transition out of chest voice into their middle or mix range just above middle C. So typically around D4, that's this pitch, or E flat 4. That's roughly where most of those lower voices have to get into their mix or middle registration. If they don't, they will get shouty or they'll just flip into head voice. Higher voiced singers, altos, mezzo sopranos, sopranos, usually transition about a fourth above, so G4, A flat 4, around there. So knowing that gives you a guide when you are approaching that range, that you've got to thin out or use a mix-friendly syllable or mix-friendly vowel. Because a lot of beginners might just be in this zone where they think, well, in order to sing higher, I just have to push more. And you'll reach a point in your range where that doesn't work. It might work for a little bit, but it won't work forever. So understanding also that you have this component of your voice that for a lot of us is underutilized or even totally missed, and that is your head voice or falsetto function. Ooh, that higher, lighter sound. You should be training that as a part of your warm-up. You should be, because it's not only helpful for singing in head voice and falsetto, it's helpful for training lightness and flexibility and agility in your voice throughout your entire range. So understanding that will help you a lot. You're going to spend a really, really large chunk of time working on that mix or middle voice and on your transition from chest voice to head voice. That will continue to be a thing that doesn't come 100% naturally for most singers. Some singers are just kind of natural mixers. I've run into them, in teaching, and some singers, it's like, wow, they don't really have an obvious break in their voice, and they're just kind of singing from bottom to top or top to bottom, and hey, seems to be going smoothly. More power to them, but most of us don't fall into that boat, and it requires dedicated work. So let me quickly jump over to the comments and make sure that we are tracking. All right. Joshua is asking, how will I know what I am in terms of voice type or range? So Joshua, it's going to boil down to which pitches you are really comfortable singing. At the very basic level, you'll sing through, kind of same process from before, getting a virtual keyboard and working with a chromatic tuner to find what your lowest comfortable pitch is and your highest comfortable pitch. That's basically it. But again, check that article in the video description. So quick tip if you've made it this far. When in doubt, you can focus on maintaining good posture, on breathing low, and on relaxing everything from here up. So if you're overwhelmed and you're like, I just don't know what to do, you can't go wrong with tapping back into good posture, low, relaxed breath, and relaxing from here up. There is a certain level of vocal effort that we have to exert, particularly when we're singing higher into our, high chest voice or a mix or middle voice. It's not just like totally chill, we're not exerting any effort. But when you're feeling tension, tightness, squeezing, locking, jamming up, anything that feels like that is not a good sign. So it will not hurt you to simplify by focusing again on your posture, your breath, and relaxing. You can also, if you feel out of your depth or you're getting stuck, you can always return to a semi-occluded vocal exercise, meaning the lip trill, singing through a straw, singing on an NG, singing on an M. Semi-occluded just means partially closed or partially blocked, and we're partially closing or blocking the vocal tract. It makes your vocal folds, it makes their job easier to come together, to stay together. So when in doubt, you can always return to one of those semi-occluded exercises. Okay, moving on. For beginning singers and for everybody who wants to improve, super important that we understand what specific exercises are good for, what they're meant to work, and how to modify them if they're not working for us. So I would say in general, most wide range exercises are working on achieving a consistent tone and balance throughout your range. So that's kind of the general goal of most exercises. But some exercises have an additional focus or a different focus. So the nice thing with 30 Day Singer, if you've been on that site and gone through any of our courses, we'll be very clear about what a specific exercise is for. So for example, if we're working on head voice, we'll use something like an oo vowel or an e vowel, and the goal is to gain comfort and improve tone in head voice. So that tells you if you're doing that exercise and you're going ooh, and you're not in head voice, ooh, then you won't get the benefits of that exercise as intended. Is that going to hurt you? Hopefully not. I don't think so. But you're not training head voice, and I wouldn't choose the ooh vowel to be up high in your chest voice or mix. I wouldn't do it because it's not helpful. So going through some other examples, if you're singing something that is, let's say, a top-down pattern, maybe the pattern is mum 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 or ba 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 ba, then you can assume the goal for that is to find some lightness and placing your voice in that kind of higher, lighter place and bringing that down to the bottom part of your range. The reason we'd use that is to avoid getting overly heavy on those high notes. So if you're going mum, 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 and getting really heavy and shouty, then you might benefit from going mum, 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 mum. So you can find some more lightness and flexibility up there. If, on the other hand, the exercise starts low and goes high, you can assume we're doing that to get that chest voice quality. So if the exercise, for example, is a no, 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 you can assume we want that no sound, and we want to maintain that as we're ascending. No, no, no. We're not using that to go no, no, no. We'd use a different vowel or syllable if we wanted it to be super light. If we're working on vowels, so if you see a bunch of vowels or even just one vowel, so if the exercise is something like E, then you can assume the idea there is maintaining a consistent tone and perhaps doing some vowel modification on that vowel. If you just sing E, not your best tone. That's an unmodified E vowel. E. That's getting a little bit thin, a little bit not great. E. Much better sound, much more balanced. And we achieved that by modifying that vowel, dropping the jaw as we ascended instead of just keeping it closed. So I'll give you kind of a how to build a warm-up syllable primer really quick. So each warm-up syllable that we use, it is chosen for a specific purpose. Um, if you've got a narrow vowel, meaning an oo vowel or an e vowel, that is really nice for light registration or light coordination, specifically head voice. If you have a medium or neutral vowel like an or an o, that is typically really nice for mix or middle voice. So if you're singing mum 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 mum, there's a reason we're choosing rather than moo 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 moo. Because you noticed using that oo vowel, I just lightened into head voice. Moo 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 moo, and it would be really difficult to keep that mixy and chesty. Moo 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 moo. No thanks. Mum 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 mum. A lot easier. Okay, so narrow vowels, great for light and head voice. Medium vowels, things like that, great for mix or middle voice. And if it's good for mix and middle, it's probably going to be good kind of overall. Wide vowels like a, vowels where our mouth is literally wide, great for chesty sounds. Hey, 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 or yeah, yeah, yeah. But we probably won't take those up too high because they can cause us to shout a little bit. So if a warm-up is supposed to be working your head voice, or if a warm-up is supposed to be working your mix and you don't feel that it's accomplishing that purpose, then you can swap out the vowel or the consonant to make it work for you. So if your sound is too light, then you might want to go toward neutral or even wide vowels. If your sound is too heavy, you're straining, yelling, and then cracking, then you'd want to go from that wider mouth shape to more neutral or even to narrow if neutral isn't far enough in that direction for you. With consonants, for a lot of beginning exercises, we use consonants for a purpose. It's very difficult to just sing an open vowel, particularly as you're crossing registers. Really, really tough stuff. So we often will add a consonant there to provide a little bit of support, a little extra back pressure. So if you try this with me, if you sing on an going you might run into a little vocal crack. You might go or you might just start shouting. It'd be a lot easier if you added a consonant to that. So sing instead on ma 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 or ba 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 ba. That's giving us a little bit of extra back pressure. Kind of think about it as it's kind of cushioning or protecting like your onset. So it's easier for your vocal folds. So again, I want to talk to you about what consonants are good for what. So soft consonants, we would categorize, an S sound, an H, a sh, any consonant in which there is clear airflow. So you can feel that air flowing. Shh. Lots of airflow. So soft consonants are really nice if you are over compressing, if you're getting shouty or starting to yell, if you're going ba 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 and it's shouty, you might benefit from wee 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 or zoo 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 wee. Something where there's airflow. Zzz, th. A medium consonant would be something like an M or an N. There's some back pressure, but not a ton. So that's why we often will use M and N in our mix or middle exercises. When we're singing nay, 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 and mum, 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 we're using that M and N on purpose. What if you're using that M or N and your voice is breaking apart and it's going too light? Then you might consider a hard consonant, meaning a consonant that has even more support, even more back pressure. That's why for chord compression exercises, sometimes we'll use the g sound or a b sound. And if you make those sounds with me, you'll feel there's a bit of air resistance that builds up prior to releasing that sound and releasing that air. G, b. So if your voice is breaking apart on mum, 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 then you might try g, 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 or b, 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 to avoid that mum from happening to you. Okay, so that's getting into the mind of the voice teacher. uh, Maybe a little bit too much if you're a beginner, but I really think it's beneficial, even for beginners, to understand why we choose specific warm up syllables and to be able to troubleshoot and modify. If that syllable's not working for you, then you should have the flexibility and the freedom to swap out that vowel, swap out that consonant, and make it a little bit more supportive, a little bit easier for you. Okay, let me check the comments really quickly. After this, we're going to talk about song work, how to approach that as a beginner. All right. Bop is asking, how long should you spend on an exercise? That's a really great question. I think typically you're not going to be spending more than, let's say, a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes on any given specific exercise. Let's say you chose one day, you're like, I'm going to work on head voice. Then you probably would choose something, maybe an ooh walk down. Maybe you're going ooh. You don't need to do that for 5 minutes. You'll start maybe a little bit lower, take it up higher, come back down, and then you'll move on to a different vowel shape or a different exercise. Maybe something working on vibrato. And then on to the next. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. For any specific exercise, it's really just a matter of start in your comfy range, take it up to where you're comfortable, maybe just a little step past where you're comfortable, take it back down, move on to a new exercise to work your voice in a slightly different way. Jim is asking, I have a question. So I've watched the beginner 30-day singer videos, so I know some techniques, but no knowledge in notes, scales, or any musical knowledge. Any recommendation for sites or programs? So Jim, we do have a really quick, well, it's an hour, but quick comparatively, intro to music theory for beginners here on the channel. I think that's a really good place to start. But a really good free resource I recommend is musictheory.net. If you go to musictheory.net, which I'll put here in the chat, the site is free and it's very basic, but it will set you up with basic music theory knowledge, and they have a lot of different sections you can dive into. They also have apps. So if you're like, yes, I like this site, I want to support them, or I want the convenience and the portability of an app, then you can check out their apps. They have one for music theory and one for ear training. So I recommend checking that out. I've not really dove into music theory lessons or courses, so beyond that I don't have many recommendations for you. Okay, and let's actually wrap up main part of the lesson, and then I'll jump back to questions. So Joshua, I see you, and Hugo, I see you. We'll jump back to your questions in just a few minutes. We'll have a full 10 to 15 minutes for only those questions. Okay. Okay. So song work. Oh yeah, only two more big points for you: song work, and then the importance of goals and deadlines. So song work, as I mentioned before, my biggest encouragement to beginners is to choose songs that are maybe just a little bit on the easier side at first while you're kind of getting your sea legs. It's the biggest way to avoid frustration and burnout. It breaks my heart when singers are, doing well in their lessons and they're growing technically, but then they want to sing this song that is so far beyond their current skill level, and it's frustrating for them, and it's yeah, it's just disheartening. So there's no rush. You don't need to jump straight to every song Beyonce and Adele have ever sung. There's a lot to focus on, as one of you guys was saying earlier. There's a lot to focus on when you're singing. So make your job just slightly easier in the beginning, and I think understand what the purpose of that specific song is. So you might be working on this song because you're about to sing it at a wedding, or going out to karaoke and you want to kind of polish this song so you can feel confident with it. You might be singing the song because you've loved it for a long time and you just want to get better at singing it. You might be singing the song specifically for skills growth. So you're like, I want to be better at sustaining high notes. So I'm going to choose a song with a couple sustained high notes. That's wonderful. But I would say, rather than looking at the very top of, songs in terms of difficulty, look 1 or 2 steps above where you're currently comfortable. So for example, a really practical example, if you are a tenor or baritone and you're working on your mixed voice, I have some real students in this situation, so I'm speaking from experience here, that they used to be, breaking or flipping around that D or E flat range, and now they're stretching that mixed registration up to E, F, F sharp, and even G. That's awesome. Now, I have some students that might want to jump into singing a song that requires them to sing a B flat. And that's frustrating for both of us when, in exercises, they're getting a G and they think, well, G to B flat, no big deal. Or maybe they're not even thinking that deeply about it. So typically, a song isn't going to make those technical requirements easier. A lot of times a song is going to make it harder because an exercise is built to help you, really. We have those specific vowels and consonants we're using for specific purposes. Songs don't have that. Songs have lyrics. So anyways, I'm done being on my soapbox, but the big takeaway is look for songs just 1 or 2 steps outside of your comfort zone, or working on kind of one additional technique, rather than singing for a little bit and then just jumping into the deep end and getting frustrated and maybe burned out. Last main point before we jump into questions again is the importance of setting goals and having deadlines for yourself. This kind of goes back to setting a habit, but it's really tough to work on something with no deadline or nothing that you're working toward. If you've got, let's say, a voice lesson on the calendar, or if you have karaoke bar date on the calendar, if you have an open mic night on the calendar, or even you just have a date that you're like, I'm going to record myself on this day and I'm going to listen back and I'm going to see what progress I've made. I'm going to, listen objectively. I highly recommend you putting something on the calendar that you're working toward. So lessons, performances, recording dates, they can all serve that purpose for you. And then don't wait too long to step into the real world of singing for other people. I don't want you to be in your bedroom or in your closet singing for years before you step out and maybe go to that open mic night or sing for your family even. The reality is that singing for other people, we get nervous. Professionals get nervous. And that nervous energy, you learn how to deal with it, but it doesn't go away. So it's good even if you don't feel, you're not like, I'm the best singer now and I'm ready to show myself to the world. It's a good idea to step into the real world of singing for other people a little bit sooner rather than later. Um, be careful about posting things online because we all know people online hiding behind an anonymous name are sometimes not their best selves. So I would be cautious about that, but hey, you can always upload something, share it privately, or do an unlisted or a private link and share that with maybe friends across the country or state, family members. Anyways, just some ideas to get you out of the practice room and into connecting with other people with your music and with your voice. All right, I'm done talking. I'm ready to answer questions. Okay, so back to Joshua's asking, can I sing like a pro? Joshua, you can train like a pro, and in for some people that might end up with singing and sounding like a pro. Um, what we can't control, Joshua, which we can improve, but oh man, I feel like I've opened a can of worms. I need to know what you mean by sing like a pro, because we know that some people have naturally beautiful tone or just seem to be naturally gifted, and that's something that is kind of difficult to address within that question. But I will tell you, Joshua, a lot of working professional singers I know, they might not be the most naturally gifted. They might not have the most naturally beautiful tone, but they've trained. They're good enough. They work hard. They're nice to work with. They know music theory. They're good sight readers. All of these other skills that are separate from but contributing to their skills as a singer. So I don't know if that answered your question, but I think my response to you is what's in our control. Um, you know, the voice that I was born with, not in my control. My natural speaking voice, not in my control. The time and attention that I give to my practice and growing my skills, investing in myself, that is something I can control. So, anyways, Hugo's asking, I want to buy a microphone. What type of microphone do you recommend buying? Hugo, I can tell you. Well, first question is, do you have an interface or do you need a USB microphone? I need to find, because I was just recommending to somebody good USB mics. Oh boy. Oh, now I need to think about where I sent that recommendation. Was it over email? Okay, Hugo, I think I might need to get back to you on that. But that first question I asked, do you have an interface or are you looking at a USB mic? That's an important thing to answer. I can tell you, I started. Okay, both. Okay, cool. So for Hugo, hold on. Um, Boy, oh boy. The name is escaping me of the USB mic that a lot of people recommend. Um, I started on an MXL, what was it? I think a 990. And it was like, under $100. It was worked with an interface. I was happy with that mic. I recorded on that mic. I did projects on it. I started my YouTube channel on that mic. And it was good. It served my purposes. I upgraded then to is it down here? Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry, out of frame. I upgraded to mic I have now. It's a Vanguard Audio Labs V13 condenser mic. So basically, there's kind of debate. It's pretty, so I'll show it to you. Um, so Tyler's asking Blue Yeti. I'm actually talking on a Blue Yeti right now. It's their Yeti X, and I like it, but I'm not using it for like professional projects. Let me get that answer for you. Um, I'll find it, Hugo. There it is. Okay. Audio-Technica AT2020. That is the USB mic recommended by pro and semi-pro singers in these, like, you know, pro singer groups on Facebook that I'm a part of. That's the one that people really, really like more than the Blue Yeti. So I have a Blue Yeti, no shade. But time and time again, people really, really like this here. Here's a link. Oh, okay. Link is too long. I'm just gonna write Audio Technica AT 2020, and that's for USB mic. I'm partial to my mic that I got, but Hugo, the big thing is to try the mic out before you buy it, and to determine, is it for vocals? Is it for instrument as well? Because you might end up with a different mic. Some mics are more versatile than others. You don't have to get a condenser mic. Some people like dynamic mics for recording. I've used condensers and been really happy with them. But how I landed on my mic that I ended up getting was I did what's called a mic shootout, where you get a bunch of the same, or sorry, a bunch of different mics in the same room. You sing on each one, and then I listened to my voice. I heard, the difference in quality between those mics. And so you could do that at a local music shop, potentially. Guitar Center used to have that ability as well. So check that out, but definitely, if possible, try out the mic that you're considering, because each voice is different, and each person has their own preferences when it comes to how your voice sounds. Okay. Maria, how do you know if you're practicing effectively an exercise? So Maria, it really comes down to, what is the point of that exercise? If the exercise is strengthening mix, or working on tone or head voice, then really what it comes down to is, am I getting closer to my goal with this exercise? So if I'm singing and my goal is to train a beautiful E vowel throughout my range, is this exercise helping me to do that or not? And I think that's the key, is, am I getting closer to the goal? Maybe not am I reaching the goal 100%, but am I getting closer? I think also consider, yeah, it's a really, really good question. I think that's a reason a lot of times that people come to teachers, is because they're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. Yeah, I hope that helped. That's a difficult question to answer, but essentially it's, you've got to know what that exercise is, what you're trying to accomplish with it. And then the answer is, am I accomplishing that thing with the exercise? Okay, Alan saying, what does it mean when someone said you should strengthen your mixed voice? It's really confusing. So Alan, your mixed or middle voice or mixed registration, yeah, I can see how that would be confusing. When I say strengthen, I mean range extension of your mix. So a lot of times people will find their mixed registration, but it won't be like their full mixer middle voice. They'll kind of have to work on it, like half step at a time kind of thing. Others not. Others it's easier. But so that's one component. Another component is sustaining within that registration, because a lot of times we'll go mum 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 mum, and that top note, we can hit it, but we can't yet sustain it. So range extension sustains, getting rid of consonants and being able to sing on an open vowel. Developing our vibrato, because a lot of times when we're working on a skill, our vibrato disappears because it's like, oh, I'm not super comfy in this range. So getting to that point where it's comfortable enough to let your vibrato ring freely. We could also be talking about vocal power and dynamic. So maybe your mix is a little bit lighter, and when we talk about strengthening mix, it's a matter of adding a little bit of oomph or air resistance, or higher dynamic level. Also asking how to know breathing from your abs. So Alan, the first thing to consider is your posture. If your posture is poor, so if your shoulders and your rib cage are all collapsed, it's very difficult to breathe using your belly. If your posture is good, so if your shoulders are down, back, and relaxed, your chest and sternum are lifted, it's much, much easier to take that low belly breath. So basically what you're looking for and feeling for is that your belly's moving when you breathe, and that your chest isn't going up and down, that your chest is staying tall, your belly's expanding when you breathe. And then when you sing, that your belly is slightly engaged in that down and out kind of pressure. Yeah. Okay. If you want like deep dive into breathing, we have a whole hour-long lesson just like this on breath support. So I recommend you check that out. Okay. Tyler's asking, so improvement would be, am I getting closer to the sound I desire? Yeah, I think so. I think that's huge. I think we can look at improvement a little bit more objectively. So you could say that you're improving here's the thing. You can say that you're improving when you have more control over your instrument. So when you feel like I'm not cracking all the time, I'm able to predict how certain pitch is going to feel and sound. I can shape my tone differently. That's huge. You could think a little bit more objectively in terms of I can sustain notes for longer than before. I have more dynamic variety. I can sing with more agility and speed. I am better at modifying my vowels so that my tone doesn't go all crazy. I hope that makes sense. So I think we can think about it objectively in terms of skill, and then we can think about it more subjectively in terms of getting closer to the sound that you want. Is that limiting? Maybe. It might be. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. I'm not trying to be annoying here. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like if you think about classical singers who are just classical singers and they do it really well, one could say that's limiting for them to not be getting into rock and R&B and folk. Like, but that's okay. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's yeah. I like versatility. I'm a fan of being able to sing multiple styles. But that doesn't have to be your goal. That's fine. As long as you're healthy and feel like you're increasing the amount of vocal control that you have, I think that's big. Alan's asking, when I'm breathing too much air, I can't sing anymore. So Alan, there is such a thing as over breathing. You don't need to totally fill up with air before you sing, because then you have more air than you can use. So the goal is to take in as much air as you need for a specific phrase. If you are singing do 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 do, that doesn't take a lot of air. Do 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 do. If I go like this, do 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 do, then I'm tense because I have to hold back all that air I took in, and then I have to let it go. So your goal should be taking in as much breath as you need for the phrase you're about to sing. Um, okay, and last question. Bob is asking, I really want to do warm ups without watching a video. I tried playing with the piano, but I don't really know how to play. Is there some way to do that without playing an instrument? That's a good question. Mm, there probably is. What I would look into, oh gosh. Bob, I don't have a good answer for that question. Um, I suppose if you know the pattern you're singing, then all you really need is your starting pitch. So, for example, this is last question, so we're piecing out after this. But what you could do, Bob, is you could start, let's say A3. Oh, sorry, that was A4. My bad. A3. And you could play that pitch. If you are solid on your intervals, then you could go do 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 do, then play a B flat, do 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 do, then play a B, do do, and so on. Or for a different exercise, do 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 do, B flat, do 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 do, B, and so on. So if you're really solid on your intervals, you could just play a starting note and walk up the scale or up the keyboard and down the keyboard in half steps. All right, guys, it's been real. We'll see you next week, I think at the same time. So mark it on your calendar if you are a calendar person. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you then. And yeah, as always, I really appreciate you being here. These are lots of fun to do, and I'm glad you're here live. All right, guys, see ya.